Our self-worth is not dependent on what other people think, or I don't need validation from anyone else. Think about your strengths, just like 5 things that you do well, or 5 things that are amazing in your life, or 5 things that are non-negotiable that you would not change, and it suddenly feels better. It's hard. It's hard to recognize what your voice can do for a cause, first of all. Again, when I was younger, I was given this platform, right, which suddenly people were listening to what I had to say, and I was like, whoa, I better make what's coming out of my mouth, right, or sensational, or like make people want to hear it. And that was in the beginning when I was first starting out my career, and I don't know what outrageous things I would have said in the fight I got into, or like I had some crazy invincible confidence at that time. And then you grow and you realize that words matter, and you start figuring out what words you're going to use and how you're going to use them. And that's not an easy question. And that's what makes it such a complicated answer in a world today where each one of our voices matter a lot. We live in the world of social media, so your voice is reaching someone. This is not like when I was growing up that I would write like a letter to somebody, but here, like anyone can write to me and I'm reading it on a comment, or, that's a amazing responsibility, to be able to be right by what you're saying and to use your platform. But it's a tremendous responsibility from the other side too, of how do you say, what do you say, and when do you say it? So it's a tough question, and I'm sure each one of us addresses it in our own way. But I try to just be honest to myself. I've lived a life where I've grown up in front of people and I've made mistakes, and I've amended some, and I've not been able to amend some. But I'm a sum of everything, sum of all my choices, and I'm happy with who I am today. And as long as you're happy with who today, it's good. We're living in uncertain times, and me honestly I was very excited to and looked forward to, having a room full of like-minded people talking about dreams and aspirations, and talking about community, and creating a space where we can talk about uplifting women and each other. I've had many positive female role models in my life, and just this is a time to be able to band together, and for a conglomerate, a company like Marshall's, to walk the walk and actually create a space, 2-day space, where women have the access to resources, tools, to come and talk about their dreams, desires, as they call the good stuff, which is beyond the material. It is whatever your dream might be. So I think that was something that I really aligned with, and I thought was, the need of the hour in a way. And I was really looking forward to, honestly, the good stuff in life for me is going to sleep at night without a care in the world. When was the last time you did that? Like, do you remember the last time you were, and if you do remember, man, you should count your blessings and say a prayer tonight. But those are, to me, that's the good stuff, right? Like feeling content, feeling joy, feeling secure, feeling safe, feeling accomplished, healthy, whatever that version of good stuff is to you. Yes, it looks better in a pair of Valentinos maybe, but I think that for Marshalls as well, the good stuff really is like, yeah, you might think that it's a bag or, the thing that you wanted to buy or whatever, but it really is being able to have that sense of, safety, belonging, and community. And it's the good stuff, really. Look, I grew up in India, but my father was in the military, in the army, and so was my mom, actually. And so they moved around every 2 or 3 years, and I had a really nomadic upbringing. And because I had working parents, I was raised by my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. So I had this extreme, my extended family is very much an integral part of my family. So I grew up with a community. And when I was 12 years old, I moved to America to stay with my mom's sister. And I was here till probably 11th grade, from 12 till about 16, 17, 16. And then, which were really important, years of your life, like your adolescent years, really, they find who you become, I think, sometimes, like as an adult as well. Like you can pull on threads where you're like, oh yeah, that happened because I thought that at 15. So a lot of me was shaped in that way. And then I went back 171, 18. My career started when I was very young. I was I was part of a beauty pageant, You Miss India, when I was 17. And at 18, I won Miss Or. And that completely changed my life from being, a high school kid to working parents. And suddenly you're like, oh, cameras are on me now. That was a very disconcerting transition. Yeah, at 17, major teenager. Anyway, that led me to do Hindi movies, which many of you might know as Bollywood. And I started doing that around when I was 19, 20, modeled for a bit, 20, started doing movies. Very quickly realized it's hard work and not all glamorous and, designer clothes. And I mean, as a kid looking out, it seemed like that. But when you actually get on the set and you realize the hours and you realize the work that it takes and how many people's shoulders you're standing on, you recognize it as a craft. And that happened to me about 5 to 6 years into acting. I realized that I can hone my skills and become a professional. Like, this can actually go beyond, oh, I get to wear all these amazing clothes and movies. And I started working on the skill set, and that led me to wanting to explore boundaries, opportunities. Was an amalgamation of the East and the West. And in the beginning, I used to try and find where I belong. And then I realized that it was somewhere in the middle. And it didn't need to have a definition. And everybody tries to put each one of us in a box. And sometimes your box can have wildflowers, unicorns, whatever your version of your box is, but it should be your box, not somebody else's box. So I decided that whatever I was going to be was okay. And I pursued the career pursued me. And she's in here somewhere, my manager now. Her name is Angula Arya. And she was my label head at that time. Insane. She saw me in... you can talk to her later, and she let you the story, saw me in a Bollywood song, and was like, I don't know, no, I'm going to sign her to make a pop record. And she did. She flew down to India with the head of Universal Records. I got signed to from Universal Records to Inner Music Scope, and that's probably where a lot of you will probably know me. I did a TV show called Quantico on ABC, thank you. And that kind of was my springboard into working in America. And after that, I'd done a bunch of work here and a bunch of work in India. And I'm hoping to be able to, when it comes to entertainment, traverse both countries and borders and, do international work. But also when it comes to other avenues that I explore, whether that is hospitality. I have a restaurant in New York. I wrote a book. I have a couple of businesses. So I try to expand what my day job is into as many avenues as I can. And I would definitely encourage each and every one of you here. The world that we're living in today gives you tremendous opportunity. Don't wait to recognize it. Don't wait for someone to tell you what it is. Just pull at threads that you see, because there's so many avenues to monetize what you're doing and turn it into a career. I started doing it just in my late 30s, I would say, is when I started prioritizing that work-life balance. I mean, in my 20s, I was full steam ahead. I didn't even think of who I was obliterating along the way. My friends, my family, Christmas daily, nothing mattered. I worked whenever I was required to work, because I think it's also been glamorized for young people, especially my part of the world, that, we push ourselves to the limits. If you don't push it, you don't deserve it. And I also think that, women are always told that you guys make it look so easy. You can emotionally handle things. You work hard, you handle your home, all of it. My 20s, I didn't really care about anything except myself and what I was going to do, because I think I was thrown into a field which I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what it was like to be in front of a camera. So I was learning so quickly that I didn't have time to think about who I was, what I was behaving like, who I wanted to be, because I was just trying to keep my head above water. And once I kind of figured out what the job was and how it feels when all eyes are on you at every single moment, and you can trip up or say the wrong thing at any given moment and you'll be the one who will have the center of attention, you have to come to terms with that. And that was my first step, is coming to terms with my normal being public, and then I had to try and find ways to be able to have private time for myself and now I'm amazing at it. If I don't want to be found, you'll never find me. But there was a time it took years, and it took maturity, and it took steps, and my home, my private life, my work outside of my job has been so public for such a long time that I've learned that it's really important to protect what's important to you. And that for me, it translates into, cameras, but it could mean in this world of social media too, we all put ourselves out there so much. And I think it's really important to remember that the noise out there isn't as loud as it seems. And what really matters is who you come home to, what you feel like when you put your head on your pillow. What was dinner like? Who did you have it with? What were the conversations you were having? Did you laugh? Did you cry? But had somebody's shoulder to, lean on? Like, those are the things that really matter. And it took me a while to get to it, but I'm so glad I did. I think young people have that kind of pressure so much in their 20s, right? You've suddenly come out of school and you're like expected to live like adults and have it all figured out. And that doesn't happen in your 20s. It's impossible to think that somebody's just going to have it all figured out. And that it requires you to bend and grow and you'll creak a little and you'll come into your own eventually, as long as you're leading with your intention is good and you're leading with not ever intending on, walking over people or making somebody feel bad. As long as your intention's right, I think the speed and the momentum is okay. And sometimes, that turns you into, I remember how many of my mom's birthdays I might have missed. How many times I forgot to call her in my 20s, or how many times, I missed Dayali because I was I'm working in Europe and they don't have Dayali here, so it's fine. And I just skipped and missed and didn't think it was okay. Till I did, till my dad died and I didn't have another Dayali to miss, and with him. And when he got sick, it was a really big, I think that was a very momentous moment for me, where I realized that, life is short and we worry about so many trivial things, when there's so many big things for us to worry about. Yeah. And I think focusing on that brings you grounds. You were all born alone, and we die alone unless you're a twin. But technically, the journey is solitary, right? So it's like a train ride. When you're traveling, somebody comes into your train and they jump off wherever they have to. And then somebody comes for a longer duration and you share dinner with them. And then somebody else is there for a flash and is out so you've got to treat life like that, where even the closest relationships are transient. And I'm including my father and parents in it. And when you make that singular journey, not selfish, but that's the gift. The life, you're the molecule of, you're the nucleus of your own molecule. So you're the universe. You're the entire universe in yourself, and everything else is moving around you for you. How special is that? And I think that in that kind of, that teaches you a little bit of detachment, which doesn't necessarily, I think a lot of religion teaches you this too. Detachment doesn't necessarily means you're selfish or cold, but you're detached from things that could destroy how your reality is because of what the perception of that might be to you. But just keeping your day good, your energies good. I think I've really started, as I've gotten older, whenever I have a spiral moment, to pivot my brain, tangibly pivot my brain and my thoughts to where I am in the moment, and to actually think about, is it that bad, or am I giving the power to the noise? Around me, I was raised by so many women in my life, from my nani, that's my grandmother, to my mother, to my mom's sisters, to my dad's sisters, to my cousins. I was very blessed with confident women in my life in many, many different traits of life. And so many of them that encouraged me to have an opinion in a crowded room instead of being quiet. I love mentoring young people. I really believe in, when you take a step forward, you turn back and pull somebody up with you, whatever your capacity might be, whether that might be for women in your home, in your work life, a compliment and, something, an appreciation, stuff like that also goes a really long way. But surrounding yourself with the right people is so crucial, and being able to figure out who the right people are is the hardest part. I used to be so stressed in my 20s, everything felt like tomorrow would not come, that if somebody wrote something, and at that time, I was just being introduced to what it feels like to be written about, to be objectified in a way of I was dealing with all of those things, and everything felt so large, and everything felt, now obviously 23 years later, it's fine. I can see things in the perspective that they need to be seen in, but at that time it was so scary. And like if I didn't get a job or a movie, or, I would feel like just everything is over. Or if I wore a wrong outfit and somebody, said that she looked like crap or something, I would just, everything felt so heightened. And that's completely normal in your 20s to actually feel that way. But just under the microscope, it felt like you couldn't breathe. And I would tell my younger self that learning how to breathe was the best thing you ever did. Young Priyanka, just keep breathing, and this too shall pass. Music, our self-worth is not dependent on what other people think, or I don't need validation from anyone else. But if you upset someone you love, whether you knew it or not, that'll affect how you feel, and that may affect your self-worth. It may lead you to think about a ripple effect of consequences that may or may not even exist. I'm talking about what's important to work on is to become stable enough where the little things don't shake you. So it's not about like if I hurt somebody that I love, like that would be my undoing, is if without knowing it or deliberately hurt somebody that I love, like I don't know how I could recover from that. But if I know that I would never in my foundation, in my being, deliberately choose to hurt someone like that, it'll be so easy for me to go up to them and sit out and say, I'm sorry, how can I make this better? Because that was not my intention. Pride doesn't play. If your foundation is solid, if you know who you are, then we can live in a world like this today. And there'll still be days where you wake up in the morning and don't want to get out of bed because you're like, today feels like a lot. This is going to happen at work, or I have to deal with the consequences of the weekend, or whatever that might be. But just taking a second to recognize and really do this as an exercise. It's pretty cool. Think about your strengths, just like 5 things that you do well, or 5 things that are amazing in your life, or 5 things that are non-negotiable that you would not change. And it suddenly feels better. I think self-care is hard, what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way. It's hard for all of us, but especially women. I think we go through a lot of checks and balances at the end of the day, which, we're trying to figure out if we've done it all right or not. But again, recognizing in that moment to say, okay, there really is nothing that I have to, I have 18 minutes before I need to sleep. Yeah, I don't have to worry about something. Yeah, I could watch a show. Like, recognize that you are worthy of something as trivial as that because you want it. So it's okay for you to want, like they say here, the good stuff. And it's okay for you to take it when you can, everyday opportunities that arise or everyday tasks that you take on, to think about the most unique way of attending it, or to leave a lasting impression. If you're working with someone, will they want to work with you a second time? What kind of, when you leave a room, what do they say about you when you walk out the door? How do you want to be perceived by the world versus how you think they perceive you, and having a little bit more control. And I think that really helps to be able to, not that you can, but it helps with being able to push the boundaries, not just for yourself. If you push the boundaries for yourself, you'll eventually end up pushing boundaries for culture, because we are culture. We make up culture, each one of us. So when we push the boundaries and we feel comfortable enough in ourselves to be able to push the envelope, it'll shift